Radio. I am your host, DJ Delta Dawn, and so very glad to be here with you. You know, Monday is a great day. We're in a holiday week. I know many of you are going to be taking some time off in addition to our holiday this week, and I just want to start off tonight by telling you just right out of the gate, Happy Thanksgiving. And it is a wonderful week. We have so much to be thankful for, and so I'm very thankful for all of you for being here and tuning in tonight. And if you're brand new to our program, welcome aboard. We're very glad to have you as well. And I tell you, you picked the right night if you're a first-time listener to tune in, because our guest tonight, I'm so excited about having him on the show. And we're actually going to be speaking with him in just a few moments. But first, I want to intro him properly, and I want to let you guys know all about the great things that he's accomplished. Man, what a musician he is. He has done so much in his career, and many of you know and love him and his music and the band that he is in, the Radio Ramblers. It is just unbelievable, the things he's done. But our guest has been a recognizable banjo player, vocalist, and radio broadcaster for 30 years. He toured and recorded as a founding member of the band, the Traditional Grass, until 1995, when he purchased WBZI Radio in Xenia, Ohio. He recorded and performed with the band Longview, earning Song of the Year and recorded Event of the Year awards from the IBMA in the late 90s. He was honored by winning an Instrumental Recording of the Year award in 2001 from the IBMA for his banjo work on Rebel Records, knee-deep in bluegrass. He was also one of many artists in 2006 sharing Album of the Year honors for Celebration of Life on Skaggs Family Records. He owns an Ohio network of radio stations, adding 3 other stations over the past decade. Most weekdays, he is on the air from 1 until 3 p.m., featuring bluegrass and bluegrass gospel music on all 4 stations and webcasting at myclassiccountry.com. He was a 2010 SP BGMA nominee for Broadcaster and Promoter of the Year, and WBZI was nominated for Bluegrass Radio Station of the Year. He is SP BGMA's 2011 Broadcaster of the Year, and he currently has a collaboration project with Junior Sisk on that is out called No Doubt About It, and it currently has 2 songs from that collaboration on the Bluegrass Today weekly national airplay survey charts at number 10 and number 7. And so without further ado, we are so very pleased and proud to welcome Mr. Joe Mullins. Hello.
Hello, Dawn. How are you?
I'm wonderful. How are you, sir?
Great, great. Is our connection sounding great? Are we coming through loud and clear? And is everybody tuned in?
You know, you sound absolutely wonderful. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, oh, yeah. And thank you for the lengthy introduction. You got 30 years worth into about a minute and a half. Good job.
Well, thank you. I would have been remiss if I had not noted your accomplishments, because, wow, you have such a notable career that is very worth mentioning. So I had to put it out there. And I just want to say thank you so much for being with us this evening. It's quite an honor.
Well, thank you very much for including bluegrass music on Blog Talk Radio. And I'm thankful that Monday night with Bluegrass Planet is going to focus a little bit on what we're doing these days with the Radio Ramblers and the new CD with my friend Junior Sisk.
Oh, most definitely, most definitely. And, you know, as I was going through the intro there about you and your story career, I was just amazed at all the many things that you've done. And you know, you're not only a performer, you own radio stations, and you've just been a success as everything you've done. But I kind of want to back up a little bit, Joe, if you will, and talk a little bit about how you got started. I mean, when did you first decide you wanted to be a musician, or which came first, the love of radio or the love of music?
They were almost hand in hand, because my dad is the guy that was responsible for really getting me started, because Dad did the same thing I'm doing in the 60s, 70s, and 80s with a fiddle. Dad was a bluegrass fiddler who started with the Stanley Brothers in the late 50s and developed a love for radio and television work while working with the Stanley Brothers. And he started a radio career in 1960, and he spent the next 45 years in broadcasting and bluegrass as a great fiddle player, record producer, concert promoter, and was one of the most loved radio personalities in Kentucky and Ohio for bluegrass and country music fans. So I grew up hearing the way this is supposed to be done. I grew up hearing my dad on the radio every day, seeing him on the stage week after week, month after month with a variety of bluegrass bands. And I started playing guitar, and I was just a little guy, following him on fiddle tunes. And somehow along the way, in the 70s, Dad wound up with a banjo in the house. And when I was about 12 or 13, I got it out, and it came to me very naturally. And at that time, I was fortunate to be seeing J.D. Crowe and Sonny Osborne and Ralph Stanley and Don Reno, all these guys, performing at concerts that Dad would promote in Ohio. And it came to me very naturally. And I was encouraged by all the right people and had all the right tools. For a kid that developed a passion for wanting to be a professional broadcaster and bluegrass musician, I had the most wonderful opportunity growing up, because I got to see all the greats, got to hear it, had access to all the recordings from all the first and second generation bluegrass stars, and got to see them on a regular basis. So I was very, very fortunate to have a great foundation. Started playing professionally. First concert stage or first bluegrass festival stage I remember being on as a featured artist was at Bean Blossom, Indiana, in 1982. My dad and I were there working for Bill Monroe, and I was 16 years old, a high school senior, and the bug bit me bad. And by the end of '83, Dad and I and a great guitar player and singer in Middletown, Ohio, started the traditional grass. We wound up working regionally for a few years and then nationally for quite a while. So I was blessed to have a great foundation as a very young man.
Oh, most definitely. And not only that, but you got kind of the best of both worlds there, that you've been able to live out for, well over 30 years. And you're kind of in a rare, very exclusive group of people, because there are not many people that really get to do what they love. But when they do, man, it's nothing like anything else in the world.
Yeah, it's a wonderful blessing. And to be able to enjoy the best of both worlds, sometimes we have to walk in both worlds. There are so many musicians who, while they get to learn their craft well, and they get to present great music, whether live music that they perform or recorded music that they produce, you always hear the expression, don't quit your day job. I've been blessed to be able to manage 2 day jobs. Sometimes one weighs out heavier than the other. I was about 50-50 in broadcasting and banjo playing in the 80s, and the traditional grass wound up on tour nationwide, and the paradigm kind of shifted a little bit, and I was just a part-time broadcaster from 89 till 95. We were on the road almost full time, and I kind of burned myself down a little bit professionally and personally and spiritually and physically, and was fortunate to have the chance to buy my first radio station in 95. And there was a paradigm shift there to where I wound up a full-time broadcaster at age 29, owning a radio station that needed rebuilt completely. But I still had the blessing of being able to perform part-time on a quite a high level with the band Longview. That was kind of a special event band put together by Rounder Records in the mid-'90s. And we wound up having 2 or 3 hit albums and getting to play all the special bluegrass events coast to coast a dozen times a year for the next 6 or 7 years. So it kept me in the bluegrass community as a professional on a part-time basis. And I was able to lay such a foundation in southwestern Ohio. The local radio station in Xenia, Ohio, was my first acquisition as a broadcast professional. And Xenia is just east of Dayton, about 12, 15 miles. And I grew up just south of Dayton, so our area of southwestern Ohio has a great bluegrass history. And when I was able to rebuild WBZI radio in Xenia, we had a foundation of an audience there that we were able to build on in a big, big way. And by 2003, I bought a second local AM station, bought another one in 2004, got an FM license for my main station in Xenia, Ohio, about 4 years ago, and strengthened a webcast. So all of a sudden, over the last 10 years, I've had this huge outreach that focuses on traditional country and bluegrass music and local representation of businesses. We are full-service commercial radio. So we had sponsors and area events that gained a great respect for bluegrass music because we generated big numbers of loyal listeners.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was what encouraged me to start a band again. Once I had a great team of veteran broadcasters and support staff at the radio station. With 3 AMs, an FM, and a webcast, the phone was ringing off the hook with people wanting to include bluegrass music in what they were promoting, whether it was a community theater or an art series or a county fair. And I was booking all kinds of bands and producing events. And a lot of folks would say, can you come and produce a concert or do a live broadcast and provide some bluegrass entertainment? And I'd called on a few neighborhood musicians, 10, 12 years ago, and we'll put together a band and go out and fill a slot at a county fair or do a remote broadcast at a car dealer or a furniture store, and then put some guys together and play a show. And one of the guys that used to help me out, the neighborhood musician, he said, if you ever start a band, you ought to call it the Radio Ramblers. Because with thousands of radio listeners and hundreds of radio promotions every year, I'd wind up on the radio saying, hey, I'll be playing the banjo, and we'll have entertainment and a live broadcast and give away prizes, and we'll go out and do the old-fashioned radio promotions and throw a band together. And so I started giving it serious consideration in the first part of 2006 and called on some great young musicians right here in the area. And I said, okay, if we can come up with a couple of sets of music by the spring, I'm going to have about a dozen radio promotions this summer. I'd like to have a band instead of just throwing things together. I'd like to rehearse a couple of sets, come up with a good show, and see how it works. And son of a gun, I called some guys that could really play and sing and had a great attitude. We did that very successfully here in the neighborhood for a couple of years. And it got good enough that we, by the time we made our second recording, Rebel Records offered us a contract. And our second recording gained national distribution in 2010. And we went from playing 25 or 30 shows a year at county fairs and car lots within 100 miles of Dayton, Ohio, to we just finished our third year of touring about 40,000 miles a year.
Wow.
And so thankfully we were ready, and we had done our homework, and everybody figured out how to get along and do this. And so the paradigm kind of shifted one more time when the Radio Ramblers started touring nationally. And now it's about 50-50. I'm home about two-thirds of the time, so I can take care of my duties at our radio network and take care of some very, very loyal and dedicated and beloved co-workers that help manage the radio stations. And then I'm on the road, I guess, about 80 to 100 days a year.
That is absolutely incredible. And I must say, the name Radio Ramblers definitely stuck, and it was very fitting given how, the paradigm did shift into and evolve into what is now the Radio Ramblers, and you guys have seen great success. I mean, wow, that is a great story, Joe, and I thank you so much for sharing that, because a lot of it, yes, you have followed in your dad's footsteps, and suffice it to say, this was in your blood almost from the time you were born. This is what you lived and breathed your whole life, and I'm so happy that you evolved into it yourself, and it's become your way of life. That's incredible.
Very fortunate, very blessed to be comfortable on stage and behind a microphone at a young age, to where now, we can say I've been doing this for over 30 years. But I still am young enough to be able to keep up with the young musicians in the Radio Ramblers. Most of the guys in the band were still in grade school when I started performing professionally. But bluegrass it's also one genre of American music where you can have a long career, and because it's more community than it is industry. And I'll talk more about that in a second. But when you look at long, illustrious careers, I just finished producing our indoor Bluegrass Festival that I've hosted here in southwestern Ohio for the past decade. We do a fall and a spring Bluegrass Festival in a convention center here in Ohio. And I had Doyle Lawson and J.D. Crowe and Paul Williams all there, who are all Bluegrass Hall of Fame members. And they've been old friends for 50 years. And they did an old friends get-together. They come out and make it a special event when the three of them do a concert together. And there are three of my heroes right there who still have their chops when it comes time to play and sing and entertain a bluegrass audience. And the audience packed the convention center and loved every note they played. Well, there aren't too many other genres of music where you can continually do as much as you want at recording and touring and performing and have audience that will support that for decades. These days, seems like in modern country music, if you have 5 or 6 good years, man, you're an anomaly. The days of having a career like the late George Jones, who, had hits in 5 or 6 decades, those are over in modern American music. You just don't see it a whole lot. You can go back and look at a country or pop or contemporary music play chart from a decade ago, and today's audience isn't going to recognize 5 out of 50 names.
That's so true.
And bluegrass is completely different. The founding fathers are still loved, respected, and represented on internet radio, satellite radio, terrestrial radio, and you can still find a Flat and Scruggs record or a Bill Monroe record anywhere you want it online. Stanley Brothers records have sold huge the last few decades. Sold more, I bet, in the last 20 years than they did in the 50s and 60s when they were new. So bluegrass is really special to where, a kid like me that grew up loving and learning everything about bluegrass music is fortunate to be able to promote it on radio and present it on stage and recordings with a band and carve out, my spot and hold fast for as long as I want to, hopefully.
And I have no doubt you will. And that is one of the, you really touched on something I was going to ask you about, because I grew up loving bluegrass. Listen, it's been part of my life being, I was born and raised in North Carolina. So, in our area, there are tons of bluegrass bands, well-known and up-and-coming. And it is just so well and loved. And I believe if all other genres of music, no matter how much they change, bluegrass is the one genre that stays the same. And just as you mentioned, the forefathers of bluegrass are still as well respected and as well known today and loved as they were when, in their prime. They're never dated. It never goes out of style. It's always good, It
is. Great music is great music.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care if it was recorded in 1946, 1956. 46, that's when Earl first recorded with Bill. That was a shot heard around the world. Mm-hmm. By 56, so many bluegrass artists were just trying to survive rock and roll showing up. And they were lean and hungry, and the Stanley Brothers and Reno and Smiley and Jimmy Martin and the Osborne Brothers started making so many great records, regardless of, I said the Osborne Brothers. In 1956, they were working at a factory in Dayton and playing in the bars downtown. And by the early 60s, they had give up a factory job because they had opportunities to tour, but they still had to drive a cab through the week just to make ends meet.
Mm.
But they made some of the best music in the world. Good music is good music no matter what it took. And you go up to, 1970s when Bluegrass Festival started giving, some of those folks that didn't starve out started giving them opportunity to earn a living and have a new career. And then that spawned all the great new groups in the 70s. That's when the New South showed up, and Boone Creek and Quicksilver and all the others. So it's been a wonderful, marvelous evolution to see it all happen. And, you know, some things stay the same, but there are so many people that have put down new roots over the last 25 or 30 years, going back to some of those 70s groups that I mentioned, or even back to the 60s when you speak about the Country Gentlemen. They didn't sound like the Stanley Brothers and Bill Monroe, and it worked. And I mentioned that's on top of my head because I just got home today from a weekend tour, and we were on the eastern shore of Maryland one night and right outside the metropolitan area of Washington, D.C. in Northern Virginia yesterday, right in John Duffy's old neighborhood. And those guys made history, and they didn't do it like Bill Monroe and the Stanley Brothers. And even now, we have bands that, you know, keep putting down new roots. But that kind of brings us back to the CD that I just released with Junior Sisk. Mm-hmm. Junior and I are blessed to be contemporaries and have a little bit of the current bluegrass industry spotlight. We're known as traditionalists. And man, it was a blast. It was wonderful to meet the challenge of seeing if we could produce a CD in 2013 that sounds like me and Junior. It sounds like a current bluegrass album should, that represents who we are and how we play and sing, and that will, I think, be well received on bluegrass radio around the country. But it was a challenge to go back and dig through 60 years worth of bluegrass and touch as many members of the Bluegrass Hall of Fame as we possibly could in one CD. And in 13 songs, I think we represent about 25 different members of the Bluegrass Hall of Fame. It's quite a broad snapshot or a panoramic view of about 30 years worth of bluegrass history in 13 songs by two of today's artists. Mm-hmm. So I hope it's well received. Hopefully your audience will enjoy Hall of Fame Bluegrass by Joe Mullins and Junior Sisk.
I guarantee you they will, Joe. You know, as you were speaking just a moment ago about, you know, bluegrass music, I think for me personally, one of the appeals has always been just the immense talent. I mean, when you see it live and you see the incredible talent of the musicians and they're playing the fire out of their instruments, you know, and there's not all of this sound and stage stuff. It's just them up there playing. And
no, there's no smoke and mirrors in bluegrass. And
exactly. And
that's one thing that makes it fun and makes it so challenging. I mean, you're right there in front of God and everybody. Yeah. With a banjo or a fiddle, there is nothing to hide behind. And when it's right, when it's good, when it's great, there is nothing better. I don't know. I hear the passion in your voice, and I could just picture the Del McCurry band when you were talking about this. Those guys are some of my favorites. Del's one of my heroes, and one of the Hall of Fame members we pay tribute to. And I don't know. It's a live music. That's one of the challenges in recorded music, especially in the modern recording industry. Gee whiz, we've got so many gadgets and gizmos where anybody can make a good record, but to make it and have the power and the passion that the first and second generation bluegrass artists had, without all the gadgets and gizmos, sometimes you don't want to lose that fire. Let me take gadgets and gizmos out of it for a second. You were talking about live music. Mm-hmm. To be able to hit the recording studio, which can sometimes be pretty cold and indifferent, and to have the kind of energy that a bluegrass band has when they are in front of an audience that's appreciating them, whether it's 100 or 100,000. When a bluegrass audience when a great bluegrass band is in front of an audience that's enjoying what they're doing, that energy between the audience and the artist is so hard to capture when you go to the recording studio. And I think it's harder to capture it in today's technologically advanced recording industry than it was when bands played live on the radio all the time. As a bluegrass historian, you go back and look, and the golden age of radio is what made the bluegrass business so doggone good. Lester and Earl were were live in front of a radio microphone every daggone day when they were honing the Foggy Mountain Boys into a well-oiled machine. So were the Stanley Brothers on radio or television several days a week. So were Reno and Smiley. And that's what made them great, was being in front of an audience, whether just in a studio, as they were in radio, or at a schoolhouse or a courthouse or a church house on the weekend.
And I truly believe that because of that foundation that they laid in bluegrass music, that is one of the biggest reasons why audiences love it live and they're so drawn to it, and arenas and venues sell out and are packed, because that's a nostalgic thing for a lot of diehard bluegrass fans that, you know, that grew up, that's what they were accustomed to, and to see it in this day and time, and then introduce their children to it and say, you know, this is the way it used to be, it's still this way. And there's just something very evolutionary about that has just struck a chord, no pun intended, with so many people. And it just continues to remain true to itself. And I think that's one of the reasons why bluegrass music will always be one of the best genres of music out there, if not the best.
Well, that's well said, and oftentimes we inside the industry, whether we're musicians or broadcasters or concert producers, sometimes we lose sight of the fact that bluegrass is one of the greatest combinations of art and culture and entertainment. And there are other genres of music, and there are other, forms of American entertainment that are, they're art. But the combination between art and culture and entertainment is something that bluegrass has that I think is extremely special. And sometimes I don't want to go on stage and lose that specialness, if that's a word. I don't want to go on stage and lose that. And sometimes we do. Sometimes, I don't want to say sometimes we as entertainers, musicians, vocalists, I don't want to say we go through the motions. Sometimes we worry so much about new audiences, or we worry so much about the business part of it, that we forget the fact that it's a combination of art and entertainment. If you can if you can create bluegrass music the way it was originally created, and you can have fun doing it in front of people that appreciate it, it's still special. And it's special if you're in front of 100 people. We played to a small audience at a neighborhood concert series last night just outside D.C. We played at my Bluegrass Festival at a convention center with a couple of thousand people a couple of weeks ago. And it's to have a concert atmosphere that's special is something bluegrass can do that some others can't. And it can be special in an outdoor concert in North Carolina or Indiana or Minnesota where there's 5,000 or 10,000 people, or it can be special in a church fellowship hall, or we were in an old barn at a 4-H park that had been converted into a meeting room last night with about 100 people that just loved it. And it's special. Bluegrass is cool. And I started mentioning earlier, it's part of the entertainment industry. But bluegrass is more community than it is industry still. And that's a good thing. I've been an IBMA member for 20-some years, was secretary of our association in the early 90s for a couple of years. I'm all for upholding professional standards. I'm all for the fact that we need to be organized and have the opportunity to promote excellence and educate and create, new audience and new opportunities and explore new avenues for bluegrass music. That's the foundation of IBMA. But I'm also thankful to be in a business to where there is a sense of community between the artist and the audience, and the two come together as a community. We're on the road, as I said, I guess now maybe 80 to 100 dates a year, and So I mentioned the Del McCurry Band, Blue Highway, Russell Moore and Third Time Out, Junior Sister, Ramblers Choice, the Wildwood Ballet Boys. I can name all kinds of bands that include. Some of these bands include 3 or 4 of my best friends in the world. And we've kind of grown up doing this together, and we pull for each other. We want each other to be successful. I can't wait to play all those guys I just mentioned. I love it when they get a new record out that I can play on the radio. I love it when we get to be together at Bluegrass festivals. And each of us have fans, and we create fans for each other, and we share a friendship with a lot of the Bluegrass community and Bluegrass fans all over the place. And in any year's time, there are going to be several hundred people that we see a dozen or 2 times a year. And fans become friends, and friends can sometimes become like family. Bluegrass is very unique in that regard.
And there is a camaraderie between Bluegrass artists and fans unsurpassed in any other genre of music. I mean, it doesn't exist, I don't think, in any other genre. As a matter of fact, some years back, I attended my first Bluegrass festival here in my local area. It's put on twice a year, and had never been. And I must tell you, I grew up going to concerts my whole life. But when I went to that festival, it was like nothing I had ever seen. I was like, why did I spend money going to different concerts and other genres? That was where it was at, and seeing all the different Bluegrass bands. And the other amazing thing was it was in a park, and there was a campground. And the artists, I love the fact that the Bluegrass artists would just come out off stage, mingle with the crowd, go in the campground with their instrument, play, and it was just a great feeling of camaraderie. And I think you said it best, Joe, in that the community aspect, I think, will always remain. There will always be the business side of it, but that community, people coming out, and that camaraderie, and the Bluegrass artists, not having any kind of problem just being one-on-one. I mean, that is really what it's all about. And it really does tell fans, hey, this is, how much we appreciate you, because if it weren't for you, we wouldn't be here doing what we do, kind of thing. There is a true appreciation for that.
There is. And, again, you can go right back to the first and second generation founding fathers of Bluegrass. Bill Monroe absolutely loved to walk the campground at Big Blossom, Indiana, or get up in the old barn, or be involved in a jam session. He was always accessible. And, Bill Monroe, Ralph Stanley, Don Reno, being visible and accessible, it's something that was always part of who they were, and it's still the same way. We just got it in off the road this afternoon from a busy weekend, and I saw a couple Friday night up near Wheeling, West Virginia, at a little jamboree show that are from Central Ohio, and they come to see the radio Ramblers at least 12 or 15 times a year, and I've seen them from Wheeling, West Virginia, all the way to North Platte, Nebraska.
Wow!
To see us, and we were in Federalsburg, Maryland on Saturday night. There was a couple there from up near Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, that I have seen in probably 8 different states. If the Radio Ramblers or Rhonda Vincent are in concert, these folks plan out, all their vacations and all their travels around being able to catch one of our 2 band shows. And we were together. It was us and Rhonda up in Maryland on Saturday night at a sold-out concert, and saw people there that we get to see many times a year, and you look forward to it.
Well, Joe, I'm telling you, I love Bluegrass music, and that's one of the reasons why I started the show, because I feel like, we have so many bands here in North Carolina that just aren't, they aren't recognized on the IBA today because they're new and they're up and coming, and it's just a matter of time. But they need airplay, and then, just to support mainstream artists like your band, and to just get it out there, because
you're in a great neighborhood, man. In North Carolina, there's a great banjo player behind every tree in North Carolina.
Exactly.
There's a great mandolin player and a songwriter or 2 up every alley. It's a great bluegrass state, and I love it when our bus heads that way, when the Radio Ramblers get down. I think the last 3 years in a row, we've been at Doyle Austin's Bluegrass Festival in Denton, North Carolina, one of the greatest. I think 3 out of the last 4 years, we've been at Little John's Mountain Music Festival in either May or September up around Burlington, North Carolina. Great festival.
That's my area. That's my area. And,
that's your area over around Burlington, Graham?
That's the one I went to some years ago, and I was sold, and I've been hooked on bluegrass ever since. And yeah, it's a
well, you might have saw me playing there when I was a young man. My dad and our band, the Traditional Grass, we played that Bass Mountain Festival first time probably about 88, 89, 90, somewhere through there. And we're there many times, and that's one of the first Bluegrass Festival appearances for Longview was at Bass Mountain. And now the Radio Ramblers have been back, like I say, I think Little John's had us there 3 times in the last 4 years. Love North Carolina. This coming year, in 2014, we will be on the Outer Banks at that festival. We'll be over in Marion, North Carolina, closer to Asheville at that festival. I think two or three of the last years we've been at Red, White, and Blue, and we're not going to make it this year because we were obligated somewhere else, but we will be back at Denton, North Carolina, at Denton Farm Park for the Fall Festival with Daly and Vincent. So North Carolina just can't be beat.
Well, can we expect a new album from Radio Ramblers in 2014? Are you guys going to have any time?
Yeah, we're going to do our best. We have some material ready to go, and we'll be in the recording studio as soon as we start the year. And the Joe and Junior CD was released a month ago. And you play the socks off of it, and I think about the time that it peaks, we'll have a new Radio Ramblers release, hopefully by the spring. We're shooting for maybe May for a new Radio Ramblers album, which would be just right.
Excellent. Well, Joe Mullins, thank you so very much for spending some of your time with us this evening, especially coming back off the road today and being able to being available to call in. I just really appreciate it so much, and it's been such a pleasure speaking with you and just hearing about your storied career and all the success that you've had. But we want to wish you and the Radio Ramblers much continued success in 2014 and beyond, and look forward to you coming back to North Carolina.
Well, thank you very much, Donna, and I'm grateful for what you do and for the blog and the webcast and all the good stuff that is happening from North Carolina, going out to the whole world. I'll leave you one more thought that I share with our audience sometimes. We tell our little story about fans become friends, friends become like family. But you know what families are like. Families are like fudge, mostly sweet with a few nuts.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much for sharing
Happy
that.
Thanksgiving to you and all your listeners.
Same to you, Joe. Please give our best to the Radio Ramblers and have a wonderful holiday season.
Sure. And don't forget, your listeners can go to RadioRamblers.com, RadioRamblers.com, or Joe Mullins and the Radio Ramblers on Facebook, and stay in touch, and hopefully we'll see you after the holidays in the new year.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Joe. Take care.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye. Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. We have been speaking with Joe Mullins of Joe Mullins and the Radio Ramblers. And as he said, if you would like to check them out online, you can go to RadioRamblers.com. They are also on Facebook, Joe Mullins and Radio Ramblers, and simply just Radio Ramblers on Twitter. They are all over the place, just like, you know, they travel all over the country. Well, they're all over social media, too. And I'm telling you, just a wonderful band, and we are just so appreciative of Joe's time this evening. They have been on the road quite a bit, so just an honor that he was able to call in, given the fact he just came off the road today. Very much appreciated. So we want to say a huge thank you to him as well tonight again, and to all of you for tuning in, and hope that you have enjoyed this interview as much as I have. And if you're brand new to our program, again, thank you for tuning in and welcome aboard, and we hope that this will not be your last visit here. In fact, we have tomorrow night Smoking Hot Bluegrass Band, Wildfire. They are going to be on our program, and they will be here at 7 p.m. Eastern. So if you're a Wildfire fan, you'll want to be sure to tune in for that, and we'll find out what they've been up to and what their plans are for 2014, and when we can expect some new music from them, and where if they are going to be coming to a city near you. That is going to wrap our show for this evening, folks. And so, again, thank you so much to all of you who tuned in. We're so glad to have you here. We are Bluegrass Planet Radio. I am your host, DJ Delta Dawn. And we will be back here again tomorrow evening. So hope you can join us. Thank you. Take care. God bless. And good night. You've been listening to Bluegrass Planet Radio. Find us on the web at bluegrassplanetradio.com, on Twitter at Bluegrass Planet, and on Facebook at Bluegrass Planet Radio. Thank you for joining us.